So we're up to chapter 7. We finished chapter 6 of the section of the chapters on Teshuvah, on repentance. And in the last chapter, we finished explaining what is the experience of the damage that happens to the soul and to its godly source when a person does a sin. And we explained that basically it gets pulled into the hands of Klippa, that the conduit, good morning, the conduit for the energy that comes down to this world is now being used by the negative forces, evil, the impure sources, the impure forces of Klippa, and they're the ones that are channeling, and that's the ones who are sort of affecting the energy from Hashem when a person does sin. So they're talking about the sin is not just that you did something wrong and bad. You're basically drawing down God's energy from being pure to being pulled through the conduit of impurity, conduit of evil, etc. If you could put yourself on mute, please. Okay. In this chapter, we're now going to begin the process of how. So how do we do this? So how does one do this? We know what happens by sin. We know that sin is not a good thing. We know we have to do the tshuva. But how does one do the tshuva? What is the way that we can go about? Chapter 7, page 192. What is the way that one can actually go about and do tshuva? And the Alter Rebbe is going to begin here a really, we can call it heartsick, a beautiful way to explain and express the process, how to come to tshuva. We know what we got to do. We got to return the hay to its source. The hay, the second hay of God, of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud, and then Hey Vav and Hey was dragged down, and that hay has to be brought back to its source. That's what Teshuvah means. The word Teshuvah, it comes from, you break it in half. Tashuv hay, bring the hay back. What was the hay? Hay, we explained, was the God's breath, God's essence that was dragged down. Hey, we mentioned was Malchus. It's the way God expresses himself finally. It's the Malchus. That's why we said Malchus represents speech. And speech in its earliest form is just a breath. So we have to take that second hay, which has been pulled down, and bring it back. And now we're going to begin talking about the way to do this. Perek Zayin. V'ulam derech emes v'hayashar. But he says the proper, the true and straight way, the b'chinas tshuva tata, the first, there's two levels of tshuva in general. There's tshuva ilah, which we're going to talk about later down as we continue the studies. Right now we're discussing tshuva, that was tshuva ilah, the higher level. Now we're discussing tshuva tata, which means returning the second hay from God's name to its place. And he says an interesting expression. He says, derech ha'emes v'hayashar, the way of truth and straight. Now, these two words, truth and straight, have a lot of depth to them, because the Alter Rebbe is using expressions that have a lot of meaning at its core. What is it? Emes refers to the idea of Tiferes. In general, when we talk about the different emotions that a person has, there's Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. Chesed in general is referred to as the absolute level of kindness, which we say is attraction, pulling closer. Gevura is the absolute level of strictness, which is sort of rejection, judgment, pushing away. And Tiferes is the perfect blend of the two. But it's really not just a blend that we took red and we took blue and yellow, we made green. It's a whole different identity. Tiferes means it's no longer about me, it's about the other. In other words, the definition of Tiferes, we know, is called mercy, rachamim. The idea of mercy means, I really don't agree you should have this. In my world, you don't really have a right for this. But I'm going to have mercy and give it to you anyway. Why? Because it's not about me. It's about you. That's the metaphor we said many times about a woman's womb. The womb is called rechem. Rechem means I'm putting self aside. I'm making space for another within me. So Tiferes represents the idea of mercy. Yashar represents the idea of Yisoid. Yisoid is the level that we know the spheres have, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisoid, and Malchus. Yisoid really represents connection. In the form of the body, represents really, if Chesed represents the right arm, the Yisoid represents reproductive organs, because that's the place where a person can connect to another person and create a new reality. So Yesod represents the absolute truth, straightness. This is how the ultimate truth is when you're able to connect to someone else. Now, why are these two so important here? Emes and Yashar, which happens to be, by the way, Yaakov and Yosef. Emes, we know Yaakov is Tiferes, because Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes. Avram was Chesed, Yitzchak is Gevura, and Yaakov is Tiferes. And Tiferes, we know, is Emes Tikkun La'ad. You know, the word Emes is made up of three letters. The first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter of the Aleph base. Emes. Emes is something that doesn't change. It's uncompromising, unchanging. In other words, Emes, if you're, the Rebbe once had I don't want to say humor, but the Rebbe once made a comment, listen, he spoke about the idea that in 1982, he said there's something called the man of the year. The Rebbe said, I don't understand this expression, man of the year. If he's a man this year and last year he wasn't a mensch, then he's not a mensch this year either. And if last year is a mensch and this year is a mensch and he's always a mensch, then why is he called man of the year? It's just be called a man. The idea of man of the year, the Rebbe said, it doesn't have any real truth to it. Nevertheless, he said, if you want to use it to honor a person at a dinner and get some more involvement in the community, that's good. He said, but the truth is, truth doesn't change. I'm yesterday like this, today I'm like this. Truth doesn't change. Emes represents Yaakov Tikkun. The way it's represented in the Mishkan is a fascinating way. When they built the Mishkan, they had three levels of beams that went through the pillars. That the beams of the Mishkan had a hollowed out space in the middle, and there was on the outside on the there was three main walls of the Mishkan. There was a set of beams going on the right, a set of beams this way, and a set of beams going back this way. These beams were all connected on the top and the bottom by poles. So there was like a bracket, a pole that held them on the top together on the outside, a bracket on the bottom, and the same thing for the back wall and the left wall. Each side had a bracket on top, a bracket on the outside. Then there was a hole drilled through from the very beginning of the right side. That was a hole drilled all the way through the center of the beams till back out, the full U shape. There, they would take one long beam that was as long as all three walls, and a miracle happened that when they put the beam in, even though it was wood, it would bend, and it would come around. And it says this represents truth. Truth does not have, I go till here and not further. Emes is that it's the third beam. If there's a top beam, the bottom beam, and then there's the middle. The middle is Emes, truth, and that's Yaakov. Why are and then Yosef is Yashar. Yosef is straight. We know Yosef how he functioned as a ruler, not just because a ruler means straight, but a ruler. So it says what was damaged in the process of sinning. When a person sins, he damages the process called malchus. The malchus, the essence of God's expression, how God comes into this world, is damaged. You can't damage God himself, but you could do damage to God's expression into the world. God's breath could be affected. Therefore, if malchus, which is God's breath, was affected, you have to fix it with Yesod and with Chesed. And that's what we're going to see here. The two things we're going to use, the two tools that we're going to use in the first part. We're going to give two different pieces. In the first part, we're going to see two tools. One is Emes, one is truth, and one is, well, first kindness, first mercy, and then truth. And we'll see these two things, which is, I said Chesed, I meant to say Rachamim. So first, we're going to have Rachamim, mercy, and then we're going to have Yashar, which is straight. These two things that are going to be the process of Teshuvah, as we'll see. The idea of connection, you say it. To Heim Beis Devarim Derech Klal. As we're going to see, there are two different things. To have real Teshuvah, to be authentic, it takes two things. Now, what does it mean authentic? You see, the reason why you have to have empathy, and the reason why you have to have the first level, is something phenomenal. What happens is, there are two reasons why a person could do tshuva. The regular reason, which is a little shallow, even though it's very good, but it's shallow, and the more advanced reason, which is more truthful. What's a shallow reason? I'm ashamed of what I did. I feel terrible. I'm shocked at my behavior. The common theme here, it's all about me. I feel ashamed. I feel bad. I acted in an unimpressive way. It's all about me, which means, why am I doing tshuva? Because I feel bad. I'm doing tshuva to feel better. I mean, it's a very lofty feel better. I feel bad that I hurt someone's feelings. I feel bad that I ate pork. I feel bad that I did some sort of sin. But it's all about me, how I feel. The problem with that is, besides the fact that it's a certain shallowness that is about self, if it's all about feeling good, what's going to happen tomorrow? I could feel good from something else, another cheeseburger. Meaning, if it's all about how I feel, today, what's motivating me to feel is I'm feeling very ashamed of myself and low and embarrassed and unworthy, but it's all about I feel unworthy, I feel this, and therefore I want to feel better. How do I feel better? By working on myself. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to be more kind. It's all about me. And therefore the next day I could see a good piece of forbidden food, or I could be flashing and I want to have a piece of chocolate, and I'll say, you know what? I want to feel good. So the common theme is feel good. Feel good for, it's almost like a selfish behavior. It's almost, I don't want to say it's the same thing, God forbid. I don't want to compare it, but it reminds me of a story about just before. Again, I don't want to compare it at all. It's a completely different extreme. But just popped in my head this idea. It was a case of a rabbi, a Chabad rabbi, who got a message that it was a person dying in a hospital who wants to speak to him. Who was this person? He was a Nazi officer, and he was now 85, 90 years old. He's dying, and he said he wants to die with a clean heart. He wants to ask forgiveness from a Jew. And this rabbi told him, "I'm not going to help you first of all with a clean heart. You want to feel better dying? No. Second of all, I can't forgive you for what you did to the rest of the people. It's not my place to forgive you. You stole from him, you beat him up, you killed him. I can't forgive you. But imagine the chutzpah. I want to die with a clean heart. I lived a life of a murderer. That represents, again, it's a very extreme. I don't want to compare anyone to that level of evil, God forbid, not certainly a Jewish person, but the concept is there that you want to die with a clean heart. So that's the first thing. But so what's the motivation? It's empathy. How can this happen to this person? How can we be so unkind to God? God is a loving, sweet, giving God, and here we're spilling chocolate garbage all over him. So the thing is not that I feel bad. It's inappropriate. It's wrong how God's being treated. Therefore, I'm going to do something about it. Not that I feel bad. It's not about me. I win, I lose. What?
You did the Avera.
So you have to make the change, but not because I want to feel better. It's not because I want to do tshuva because I feel so bad and I want to feel better. Forget about you. There's a story with, I think, the Baal Shem Tov, who gave away his Gan Eden to help out a person. There was a person I think couldn't have. Forget the story exactly. Couldn't have children. He gave her a blessing, and she had children. I forget the story exactly. And they told him, because you did this, you're losing your portion in the world to come. And his response was, amazing. Until now, I could think the reason why I'm serving God is because I'm going to be rewarded for it one day in the world to come. Now I'm not getting a world to come. I'm serving God just for you. I'm not getting paid for my work. I'm not going to get thanked for my work. I'm not going to get appreciation later. It's not about me anymore. In other words, the level of tshuva has to come not because I feel bad, not because I'm ashamed, not because I failed, but it's unacceptable what happened to God. I caused it, yes, but it's unacceptable. I got to make a correction, not because I want to feel better, because I have responsibility to fix what I damaged. So it's still me doing something, but it's not about me. It's not because I want to feel better. I may not feel better. You know what? A lot of times when someone hurts somebody else, they'll go and apologize and make amends. They don't feel better. You feel like garbage for years about it. Why? How could I have embarrassed my kid in public? How could I have shamed my dear friend? How could I have hurt this person? How could I? So it's not about me feeling better. Forget it. You're not going to feel better. You're going to feel better. It's not about that. You have to correct. What's that mean? And we'll see in a minute what that means. You drag down God. We'll see what we will see when we explain what we're talking about here. You'll see exactly what we mean. You drag down God into this unhealthy, unpleasant place. Set God free. You take off the layers of dirt that you put, the layers of schmutz that you put, and let God free, so to speak. As we'll see, it's not about you. So Aleph, how do we do this? To draw down high mercy, upper mercy from the source of mercy. This is a very interesting expression. We just came from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and you might have noticed that we have certain times that we said in davening of Harachaman, and certain time we said of Harachamim. If you notice, like Mincha time, and if it's Shabbos, not Shabbos, we say of Harachaman, of Harachamim. It might be like a subtlety. It's like a little footnote there. You say, what's the difference? Father of Harachama means the Father who has mercy. Of Harachamim means the Father of mercy, whatever. What is the difference? The Alter Rebbe explains in a Maimer, there's a huge difference. Of Harachaman is talking about a certain type of mercy. What type of mercy? That a father has. There's a mercy of a mother and a mercy of a father, a mercy of a brother, mercy of a child, mercy of a teacher, mercy, all different levels of mercy. One type is called of Harachman, the way a father has mercy on a child. He sees a child, he has mercy. That's a tremendous level of mercy, but it's a quantified, it's a qualified, it has parameters. It's a type of mercy of a father. Then you have of harachamim, not the father who has mercy, but you say the mother of all mother something, the father of all. It's the father of mercy. It's mercy in its father's source, not mercy the father has for a child. That's a described mercy. We're talking about mercy in its ultimate source of harachamim, the father of all mercy, the source. That's why it says mimaka harachim, the source in its highest place. At that level, not it's a mother, not it's a father, not it's a brother, not it's a sister. It's just mercy in its purest, unfiltered, unmodified, unparametered self. Absolute, pure, unfiltered mercy of harachamim. And he says we have to tap into that. This is not the level of mercy which has parameters. This is absolute, just pure mercy. And this is what I want from Hashem in general. And we have to arouse that within ourselves as well. Who is the mercy on? Two things he's going to say, fascinating. One is al nishmosei v'nafshi elekis, on the soul and your godly soul. Hashanaflam iglarama chaya chayim baruchu lebira mikta. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe is saying here a bunch of words that are very profound. The Gemara's expression is here, me'igra lebika, from a height to a depth. We're saying me'igra rama, from a high heights. You have heights, and then you have very high heights. You have depth, and then you have very low depth. You see, you could have something that comes from God's speech. That's very high. God's speech. He created angels, and he created spirits, and malachim, and he created everything. But there's something higher than that, God's breath. God's breath, which is God's essence, is even higher. Meaning, it's not just the soul that comes down to this world. It didn't just come from the heights. It came from the heights of heights. And that's why I use the expression here, chaya chayim. In general, spirituality that comes from God is called chayim, life. Chaya chayim means the source of life by God itself, a much higher place. So we're talking now, sometimes you can have, and I was preparing this chapter, I was trying so hard not to think of the kids today in Gaza. But the metaphor that's brought down by the Shalom Chassidus here is like a child who's taken away from his parent and put into a very unpleasant place. And it says, imagine a child that's taken from a safe, comfortable place at home and thrown into an unfriendly place. And that child now was taken from a high place to a low place. Now imagine that child wasn't just a child, it was a child of the king. Imagine, it wasn't just thrown to a low place, but a low place of evil enemies of the king that are despicable. So unfortunately, my mind right away is thinking about the Jewish kids, these sweet, beautiful, holy, sweet, I don't want to say holy, that you say when someone passes away, these tremendously special, pure souls that are dragged into this horrible place. And I don't want to use that as a metaphor, because that's beyond evil, but the concept we're saying here is, imagine that you take a soul from its highest place, and you drag it down into the physical world, and you dump it into the mud. That's what happens to a soul sitting in heaven. He's enjoying the beautiful goodness where there's no falsehood, there's no egos, no lies, there's no hurt, there's no anxiety, there's no pain, there's no suffering. It's only good and pleasantness. And thrown into a world, and not only where there's opportunity for sin, but the guy goes and does a sin. You not only took your soul, and not only Hashem put your soul in the realm of danger, you schlepped him in, and now he's bleeding, and he's cut, and he's damaged, and he's hurt. That's welcome to your life with your soul. It's an amazing, there's a talk of the Rabbi, we once spoke about it in our class, from 1954, his wedding anniversary, his 25th wedding anniversary, where he talks about the pain of a soul coming to this world, how difficult and painful and tragic and different, length he talks about it. Then he says, but it's all worth it, because what you're going to achieve afterwards. Then he says, imagine if a soul comes down to this world and doesn't do its purpose. That means it's not worth it. You can say it's worth it if a soul comes down to this world and is going to end up making a blessing on Challah and lighting a Shabbos candle and having guests in their home. You can say, you know what? It sucks to be a soul that's dragged down to this world, but it's worth it. Every time it says that every angel will give up its entire existence in heaven to come down and say one time, Amen Yehei Rabba. One time, it will give up all of its life. So it's worth it. Says the Rabbi, how cold-hearted of a person you have to be, that the soul came down to this world and you don't make a bracha, and you don't go to shul, and you don't put on tefillin. I mean, you made it, so it's not worth it. He said, suffering without purpose is the worst type of suffering there is. Interesting talk of the Rabbi from 1954. Very powerful, very strong words.
Rabbi, can I take you to a grammar question?
Sure.
Okay, good. Because I was thinking about harachamim, ha, hey. Many times in Hebrew we say hey to qualify a condition. Exactly in the second time when we're talking about ha-rachamim, father or of rachamim. But when I'm talking about harachaman, probably maybe it would be saying rachaman instead of ha-rachaman to do the quality that you're saying?
So I don't know enough.
Of a father?
I don't know enough grammar to say it. Usually, when we say a ha, it's called hey hayadia. It says the known,
The.
right? The known one, like ha, Hamikdash, the temple. We're talking about the temple. Mikdash means any temple. Hamikdash is the temple, the one we know about.
Correct. That's
right?
why I saw. Okay, I agree with you with
Right.
the second explanation. Ha-Rahamim, Father of all. I agree.
Mercies.
But in the exactly mercies. But in the first
Here, ha
case,
means that.
Rahaman.
Right. By the Father, we say of ha rachaman. Here, ha doesn't mean the. It means that. Father that has mercy. Like a father, like of harachaman, like a father that has mercy. But again, I'm not a very knowledgeable. Tamar could do much more than I could here.
Yeah. Says this way you can understand, and that.
Yeah, interesting. Again, I don't know enough on grammar to comment, but I think one place it means the, one place it means that. But again,
okay, thank you.
So, but go back to our discussion. So when the person thinks for a moment on their soul, my soul was dragged down from such an unpleasant, from such a pleasant place in such an unpleasant place. You start having mercy. I feel bad. I feel bad. Tzarachamanas on this kid, on the soul. Then he says, not only the soul. Second level is not the second path. The second level, just in this one, is think about that you're also affecting God. Not just how you're schlepping God, not just how you're schlepping your soul, which is an expression of God, it's a breath of God, a part of God, an extension of God, so to speak. You're actually dragging God himself. We have a rule that says, well, let me first read it inside and I'll tell you a fascinating, almost painful concept here. He says that you're dragging down Me'igre Rama from a very high mountain, Chaya Chayim, the source of all life, Baruch Hu, blessed be He, Lebira Amikta, to a deep, not just to a valley, but to a deep valley. When someone falls from the roof to the ground, that's far. When you fall from the top of Mount Everest to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, that's worse. What is this low level? It means you brought down this energy from God and you dragged it into the mud of klippa, of setra achra, impurities. You used energy that's negative. He's going to quote soon the Ramak. I'll tell you what he refers to now. The Ramak uses an expression, very, very he doesn't say it here, but if you look at the Ramak Meshech Chachma, what he says is, imagine the king gave you money to go buy some food for him. Go to buy some food. And instead you buy a stick to beat him with it. You took the king's own stuff that he gave you to serve him, and you're using that energy to beat him. Hashem gives you a soul to have life and to have energy to raise up the world and to make the world a holier place. And instead, a person took it to drag down the world. You took a piece of cake instead of making a bracha. You ate it without a bracha intentionally. Not that you didn't know. If a person doesn't know, they don't know. A person who specifically goes and engages in harmful behavior spiritually, that you're dragging down. What's he doing with these lines here? He's not trying to make you feel bad. He's trying to arouse within us. How could someone do tshuva? Arouse some mercy. You want to change? Make it deep. Let it touch you. Don't change because I feel bad. Change because think about the effect your behavior did. Realize the damage you've done, and now change. Change because deep inside you're touched, not because of some external thing. Oh, I feel bad today. But tomorrow you'll feel bad because you're missing out on the party I was going to. Don't have your feelings be the motivator. Have the truth of the situation become the motivator. And then he said, not only have mercy on your soul, but also on its source. And have mercy on your soul. On the source. In the who Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. That is the name of God itself. Have mercy on Hashem. Like it says in the pasuk, you should turn to Hashem and have mercy upon Him. So the simple definition of this pasuk means it's a mirror image. The way it's explained usually in this verse, v'yashav el Hashem, you shall do tshuva, return to God, v'irachameyu, and Hashem will have mercy on you. It's like you turn to God, Hashem responds. The way you act, Hashem acts back with you. If you turn to God with mercy, Hashem will turn to you with mercy. The Alter Rebbe says a much deeper interpretation. V'yashav el Hashem, turn to God, v'irachameyu, and have mercy on God. You ever have rachmanas on God? What are you doing to Him? God is such a loving. It's like a kid thinks about what I did to my parents. Don't just go back to your father and have mercy. He'll forgive you for what you did to him. It's a simple level. A kid goes and hurts his father. One way is turn to your father and he'll have mercy on you. Yay, that's good. No, he says, turn to your father, have mercy on him. Think about what you did to him. Think about how your behavior hurt him. How he fell asleep last night crying because of what you did. Think about that. Have mercy. This is what he's saying. Around, that's the first stage we said. Derech Emes says, wake up mercy inside of yourself. Wake up the feelings of Rahmanas, the Midah of Yaakov. Wake that up. And when you wake up that feeling, it's a whole different relationship with your parent, with God, with the one you hurt. Not because I'm so ashamed or I hurt my relationship. Forget about you. Forget about your relationship. Think about what you did to the person that we're discussing, or in this case, to God. Pirish, in other words, think about what you did. Hashem gave over to you the level of life, of sustenance, of energy, of life force. Right this second, he's giving you a soul that breathes and lives. That because of your behavior, it was drawn down. It was taken into the chambers of impurity. That what's going to do now, you're going to give life force to the negative energies. Again, if you want to go back to the tragedies around the world today, someone who's giving the weapons and the resources of the Israeli Defense Force to the Palestinian Arabs, the terrorists. You're taking our resources and you're giving it away to our enemy. You're taking the resources of God and you're giving it away to those who want to destroy God. Which comes from all the impure thoughts and unholy thoughts that come into your mind. Like it says, Melech Aser B'Rahatim, like it says, there's a very interesting expression, and there's a lot of translations. You look it up, there's like so many different definitions of this line. The king is bound by Rehitim. Rehitim means, on a simple level, on one level, it means locks of hair. Someone's hair, says the king is bound, which means he's pulled. He has no choice. He's attracted by the beauty of someone who has beautiful hair, and it pulls him. Aser could mean I'm pulled to it. Like we say, Aser is tied, like goes along with something. So Aser means the king is pulled and attracted by the beautiful hair. That's what it literally means. On a deeper level, it means Melech Aser B'Hitim. He is tied by the pull of the river, meaning he is being schlepped in the direction he doesn't want to go. The king wants to be here, and he's being pulled in a direction he doesn't want to go. He's like tied. He's Aser means a tied. We say it in the Hallel all the time. The last paragraph of Hallel, we talk about Isru Chag. Isru Chag means the tied up. Chag refers to the sheep or the goat that you brought for the sacrifice. That's tied up to the Mizbeach. Isru Chag Mizbeach. It's tied up to the Mizbeach, meaning it's being brought to the Mizbeach. What?
It says the king is bound with the trusses.
So trusses also mean ropes. I think it can mean ropes. It can mean or hair. What's trusses? Trusses is hair.
Yeah, trusses is rope.
Rope. So you have different. Again, it means different translations. There's main translations. The Alter Rebbe is going to take here a fascinating translation, which comes from the Zohar. He said, "Asa B'Rahatim" means B'Rahatim can also mean a flow, like a river. He says your mind. Sometimes a person can get so caught up in unhealthy thoughts that you're forced to go along with it. You're forced to pull in. It's almost like when someone can have anxiety or feeling of negative energy, which we can relate to very easily, that you can't help but think about it. I keep worrying about it. I keep worrying. The same thing could be an unhealthy way. That person gets like an addiction to unhealthy thoughts. Whether it's constantly, every time you see somebody, you always think about, they came early because they want to show they're the best. Then you get stuck on the show. You always could your mind in a one-way track that you always translate it to Lashon Hara. Or it could be always translate something into impure, sinful thoughts. There are more sinful basic sins. So it says the king is schlepped along, which means God, who is the source of life, and your mind is the highest faculty we have, is dragged along in the flow of mind because the mind never ceases. One of the fascinating things about the mind, different than we have three things. We have thought, speech, and action. Action is done infrequently. I'm getting up, I'm walking, I'm sitting down. Talking, much more. Most of us talk more than we do. I mean, not this room here. These people does more than they talk. But most people talk more than they do because that's the nature of something. It's easy to talk is cheap, even though it's not. Thought never stops. A person's mind is 24/7. As long as you're conscious, you're thinking. If you're not conscious, you're not thinking. That's subconscious thoughts. But conscious means I'm thinking. So now, usually, if a person's a functioning, healthy way, your thoughts will randomly go from, I'm thinking about how to drive to work, I'm thinking about how to help out my brother, I'm thinking about I got to go to shul, I'm thinking about things that are either regular or for a purpose full of godliness, serving Hashem. Unhealthy thoughts are thinking about negative things about other people, thoughts of anger, thoughts of sin, etc. The person who is sinful is constantly flowing in that direction of sin. It's like you tell somebody you have a one-track mind. Basically you're always going that way, and you're dragging this energy, your soul, your neshama into that flow. That's what he said. Like it says, Melech Atzim hit him, but it hit the Meicha v'chulu. It's the flow of the brain. It is the mind's flow. The mind's like a flow in how your process of thought goes. He bechinas golos hashchina kanal. This is the ultimate golos hashchina. So we're talking about the basic first idea is introducing to us is the concept of have mercy on your soul, have mercy on God. Let's finish another few lines here. When is the best time to do it? He says the best time to do it is at midnight when a person gets up to cry for the Beis HaMikdash. There's a whole thing that's done. Now, today, most of us, did they say the pasuk here in a minute? Yeah. He's going to talk about the verses the certain verse that we say that talk about the king, the shame of the king, the falling of the king, meaning to Jerusalem, talking about Hashem's presence in Jerusalem, that we say by Tikkun Chatzos. The Rebbe Rashab points out that today most people don't say Tikkun Chatzos. They don't live with it. The average person, I don't know many who say it, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, when we say Shema at night, there's a paragraph that we say right before Hamapel. There's an extra paragraph that we say, asking God, to cleanse our soul, etc. When I get up in the morning, and there's like 4 lines there that's usually written in lighter print or in parentheses that says, and my getting up for Tikkun Chatzos should be successful. It shouldn't affect my day. The fact that we're going to lose sleep, because people used to get up for Tikkun Chatzos and they wouldn't go back to bed. They would get up at midnight. They would pray, ask God for the lament about the destruction of the temple, and then they would done at 2, 3 in the morning. They'd get up and start learning Chassidus and start learning. They wouldn't go back to sleep. Wait, you're going to get up and go back to sleep now? Some people would go to bed, let's say at 9 o'clock, wake up at 12:30, and that's how the day went. And we asked Hashem, it shouldn't affect me, my lack of sleep. We skip that in the Shema because today we don't say the Tikkun Chatzos. Tikkun Chatzos means that tikkun, that prayer to fix at midnight. When should we do it? So the way he says we should do it is by saying Shema. Because in general, we don't like to spend time on negative thoughts. Whether it's the craziness of what's going on today in Israel, it's not healthy to think negative. We could be sad. We could be affected by what happened in Israel, but not to be a morbid negative for the future. You have to think positive for the future. But even more so when it comes to our personal self-growth or self-overcoming challenges, if a person is not happy, if a person is not upbeat, you can't overcome challenges. A guy goes into a boxing ring depressed. I'm a failure. Good luck for you, man. But you want to go win. I'm going to win. I'll be okay. So in general, as we had at the beginning of Tanya, a Jew should never think about sad thoughts or negative thoughts about self experiences, whether it's sin, whether it's own failings or whatever it is. Always be happy. But he says, when you're saying Shema at night, that's an appropriate time to stop for a minute. Think about what you did to your soul. Say Shema with a broken heart. Doesn't mean sadness, but with a broken heart. What did I do? How am I doing? Why should I have mercy on my soul and have Rahmanis? And that's the time to do it. But don't spend time all day doing this. Don't be sitting driving your car. Man, I'm messing up my soul. You're messing yourself up more now. I'm thinking about it. It's like a guy thinking the whole day that I ate too much food. Stop thinking about it. Go exercise. Stop thinking. You have to focus on the positive. But it says Tikkun Chatzos, you should do it. And he says today, the Rashab says today refers to saying the Shema at night. Okay. Oh, that's what it says there. Like we say in Tikkun Chatzos, are the crown of our head, meaning the kings of Israel and Hashem and our pride has all fallen. A tremendous feeling of loss that we feel about the destruction of Israel, and in a deeper level, is talking about the destruction or the shame to God that we have dragged down God. What's exile mean? The Shekhinah is an exile. V'lachin, he says, now we can understand how he could say such a weird statement. I'm just going to go another 2 lines here. V'lachin, nikra hakadosh baruch hu melech olav v'perek echalus. That's how we can say Hashem is called the king of shame. How can we call God king of shame? No, it's the king that we shamed. He says, doesn't mean the king of shame, that God's a shamed king. It means we are shaming him. And this is what I told you before. He says, Zal, like the Morocco writes, the Rebbe Chachma, he says, like a king who gives money to his servant, go buy me some food, and he goes and buys a stick and beats his king. You're shaming your king. The king reached out to you with love. Here's some money, go buy food. And instead you come back and buy a stick and hit him with it. That's the metaphor he brings, the Ramak. So he says, this is what it means to shaming the king. You're embarrassing the king. The king went, you may imagine you invite someone to dinner to your house and the person throws something at you. It's not a shame on me for inviting you. It's a shame on I'm shamed by your behavior. I'm ashamed of what's happening here. There's no greater shame when you take God's energy, God's forces, God's resources, and use it to shame God. And I'm just going to read this without explaining it because I want to go back and explain something else for a minute. And especially when someone thinks into the deep, deep levels of the world of Amali, Hashem is in the world, the level of Amali. I'm not going to explain it right now. Vesoviv and how Hashem is just in the world in a more above and beyond type of way. Anybody with his basic knowledge that he has, or his great knowledge that he has, to understand godliness, will get downright bittered and therefore arouse mercy on God. This is all so far the first method why you should do to come to this level of serving in tshuva. Now, I'll just take 2 minutes. Time's really up here, but I want to take 2 minutes to talk about, and we'll continue next week. I want to just talk about one idea. This idea of shaming. Next week, yeah, we should have class. What's next week? I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, yeah, I don't know of any upcoming. I would like to go to New York next week, but I'm not. The idea that we could shame God or hurt God is based on a certain concept in halacha. That is a law that says that a student who accidentally killed somebody has to run to the city of refuge. It's called Ari Miklat. He has to go to the city of refuge. And the halacha is Talmid Shagala Megal Rabbi Imai. If a student who has a particular mentor, who is his mentor, who guides him in life, not like just a teacher like in school, but a mentor, the mentor has to go along with him to exile. Because the guy can't lose a student. The guy now more than ever needs his mentor. So the mentor goes too. So from there we see, and again, it depends if he has other students or not. It's not so simple, but the mentor has to go with him. So we see here when a student does a sin and goes to an unhealthy place. Bottom line is the fact that you accidentally killed somebody means you have a connection to death. That means it's not good. You have to go to exile to do tshuva, even though it was a mistake. Your teacher is schlepped along with you. That means you drag us. So we say when God sends us into exile, God's in exile too. So there's a letter that in 1951, or 1950 still, it was in Cheshvan, and I just printed out the letter today to read it because it's a powerful letter that the Rebbe writes to this boy, Chabad boy, who went to yeshiva in Chabad. He decided he wants to go to college. And to understand, in 1950, going to college for a religious kid was a major, major thing. There wasn't opportunities like there were some like yeshiva universities or places. It was going into the depth of impurity, the depth of, and even today, unfortunately, maybe in some ways more corruption and inappropriate behaviors and lifestyles, which probably in some ways is worse today even. But it was looked at much worse. He writes to the Rebbe, he wants to go to college. And the Rebbe says the whole long letter why it's a mistake, why he shouldn't do it. And the Rebbe says, even if you feel that for a few minutes I'll stop being that yeshiva boy. He said, but you're like a convert that converted. A person that becomes Jewish can't say, I became Jewish and I want to be not Jewish right now for this 1 hour. You are stuck Jewish. He says, you went to yeshiva, you're a Chabad boy through and through, to the point that your Rebbe, you're talking about the previous Rebbe who just passed away, goes with you wherever you go. And if you're going to college, you're schlepping my father-in-law with you to college. What he says. Strong letter, amazing, very strong letter. So the Rebbe said, I don't have to tell you too much because I'm sure he'll do the right thing at the end. But it's a very strong letter, very, very strong. But what's the point here? That if a person realizes, and the Rebbe told to many people, that when you do something, just imagine a person that goes into an unhealthy behavior. It affects the parents. The parents go, wow, this is Yankel's son, this is Yankel's daughter. Look what you're doing. She became a thief. It embarrasses the parents. By the spiritual way, it drags the one who gives you life with you. If the Hashem gives you life and you do sins, you're dragging him with you into the sin. So the point we want to make here is, think about the Rahmanis and what you did. You don't care about yourself. You don't care about if you're not religious. You don't care if you're not holy. You ate pork, good. You don't care about yourself. But care about the guy who cares about you. You're dragging him with you. You're schlepping on a rope down into the impurities. Your Rebbe, your God, your soul. And that's the first point he wants to make here. So how should a person do tshuva? Have some mercy on what you're doing here. Maybe you're not so holy, but think about what you're doing to your neshama. That's step number one. And we'll continue with this next week.
Hostages that were taken. She was visiting from Canada.
I just saw that. I just saw a picture of her. She very, very active in trying to make this person. Yeah, I just saw that. Hashem should bless her and watch over her. And very tragic. That you look at her, it's a peaceful, sweet person. I just saw the picture because it was posted in a few places. The picture, And Hashem should give her tremendous blessing and strength, along with all those that are in this very, very, very unhealthy place. And we need Hashem's miracles, and I think Hashem could do it. He just should do it.
I have a grandson. I'm sorry, I have a grandson there, and I have my son on the way to Israel.
So watch over all them.
Hashem should give him special protection for all these soldiers, all these brave men. My son also has friends that are that were trained years ago, and they're leaving their wives and children, and
it's incredible what they're doing,
and getting on planes. So the bravery, Hashem should give protection to our brave young people, our soldiers.
Amen. But especially for those, again, our hearts are with everybody, but somehow the pain for those who were kidnapped and the hostages or the unknown, both because the damage it does to the family who loves them, and both because it's an unspeakable sick place to be, kidnapped by such evil people. So
can't hear you.
Oh, Moshe, did you talk to Paul Ginkle about his daughter?
Yeah, I saw him yesterday. I saw him today. I talked to him about. He told me he's more relaxed now, but he sounded very nervous about his daughter in Israel.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people have family, friends. They were talking on the news. One of the talk things I was listening to, they said, unlike America, Israel is such a small place, and the numbers are so high. There is nobody who doesn't know somebody who was involved. Meaning, everybody has. It's not like sometimes something happens in California, and I don't know any of the people, but I just feel terrible that our fellow Americans are good people. Something happened here. Everyone knows someone who knows somebody. It's such a small country of 9 million people, and it's this number is the equivalent of, I don't want to guess numbers what it means in America, God forbid, but it's a tremendous amount of and there's, like I said, the unknown is I think the hardest part, because your mind could run around, and we know how evil these people are. So Hashem should have Rachmanis, and that's why we said Tillim before. We're saying Tillim every day in our community, and everyone is giving extra charity to any charity you could think of. There are many in Israel that can use money. Yeah. And Hashem should bless and protect and watch over and show the world that there's a God. Show the world that there's a God that is taking care of his kids and bringing justice to the world. So we should have good news and healthy news. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Moshe.
We'll see everybody, and only health and blessings.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me